Let's start off with factoring in Africa's unreliable electricity supply, low vehicle affordability, and of course the dominance of used vehicles on the continent. How close then is Africa to an EV future?
Well, thank you for your question, Uche, and thank you for having me today. Well, I guess those are indeed barriers, indeed, but you can see it from the flip side, really. The opportunity of electric mobility in Africa is really a big opportunity for utilities to create new revenue stream, to create a virtuous circle, so they can invest in their network and invest in reliability of electricity supply. So we can see it really as an opportunity here. You did mention the used vehicle, and it's true, but it's also an opportunity for us to develop a new economy, a new industry, and manufacture electric vehicles on the continent. And it has started really in Nigeria and Ethiopia already. So let's be positive. Let's see the bright future our continent offers, and let's get to act really.
And I guess the question is how soon before we'll see this come to fruition, full circle in Africa? Because many say that we can start off with motorcycles and tuk-tuks, basically the 2 and 3 wheelers, and that will lead the EV adoption in Africa. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would argue that we have already started with 2 and 3 wheelers. It's a reality in Rwanda, it's a reality in Benin, it's a reality in Nigeria, let alone Kenya, who's further ahead. So it's already happening. That's what we need to understand. And we need to be surfing on that curve because it's coming fast. And with spiking oil prices, the opportunity is now for Africans to make savings and to invest in their own opportunity. So let's not waste time. It's already happening, and there's a demand for it. That's what we need to understand in both rural and urban areas. It's really critical to get there.
Now, the reason this is particularly critical and important is that electric vehicles are important to achieving climate neutrality going forward. But here in Africa, transport, it currently makes up about 10% of the continent's total greenhouse gas emissions. So how critical will the further adoption of EVs be to Africa's climate goals? Is it critical to our climate goals and also our energy transition?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. People always tend to think about the current situation, rightly so. But we also remember that our continent is the one poised for significant growth in terms of population, in terms of transportation market. There's a compounded rate of market growth in transportation around 12% per year from now up until 2030. So that market is set to grow. And with it, our climate emissions are set to grow. So it's about creating, charting our own pathway, not to follow the pathways of other continents and avoid that emission track. So it may be 8% right now, but we set to augment significantly. And that's what we are trying to chart as a way for government and utilities to get involved as soon as possible.
Now, a lot of the EV optimists in Africa, they say that African nations, they have the opportunity to learn, especially from the sharp rise in procurement of EVs in the Western world. What then would an enabling ecosystem for electric vehicles in Africa look like when we talk about policy and business models going forward?
Yeah, well, there are facts, right? There are facts we can circumvent. A three-wheeler currently in Nigeria is worth 2.2 million naira. That's roughly about $5,300. That's a lot for an average household. So there's a need there to develop consumer financing, to have local banks that get involved in the sector and that can serve the population. That's really a first point to start with. The government also has to play a really critical role by developing fiscal incentive, be it for import of potential EVs, or even be to reduce their subsidies in the oil side. When you think about a country like Ethiopia, who spent basically $3 billion in 2020 in terms of subsidies to import oil, that's a huge opportunity for electrification of fleet in Ethiopia. So let's get the consumer financing right. Let's get the policy and the enabling environment right. But when it comes to the business model, they need really to be sharpened depending on vehicle utilization, fitting and tailored to the patterns of end users. and not only around affordability, but almost around asset ownership, because that's where the difference is. And that's where it will help bring all of the stakeholders around the table to shape a policy. Because what we need is an electric mobility policy in each one of the African countries, depending on their own realities. So there's a lot of work to do there, but what we do know is that there is appetite already from the end user.